Okay, welcome back to, this is the third video of reverse engineering. So what we're going to be looking at this time is we're going to be taking the song. So far you've all already gone through your mix notes. You've got your mix notes ready. So part of your mix notes, what we need to understand about most music, obviously, and the way we listen to it, there is a form of progression. So this is the next step or the next segment, which is the third part to reverse engineering, that we need to understand as artists and producers on how to take this, any track or eventually any song you start writing and producing, and how to make it move, okay? So the basic fundamental here is we're trying to listen for, we're still using our ears. A lot of this is just ear training, but we need to understand these basic concepts because we need to know how to take the song forward. So in this segment now, what we're going to be looking at is, let's have a listen. So I'm going to start from the beginning, and as we're going, I'm going to explain to you what exactly is I'm listening for. And the main thing that I'm looking for, I'll tell you now, but is that I want to hear progression. So how does the song progress? Where do key changes take place? So now progression can happen in a few ways. It could happen on individual tracks. So a great example could be your drums start to progress. So your drums could be progressing every 8 or every 16, depending on the bar structure and the bar count. You can have your chords moving through a certain time frame. So, and how the progression works is basically there's one key fundamental principle we need to understand about progression. And this is kind of like, it's kind of a guiding rule that helps me understand how to work the pace of my music. When we look at progression, let's have a listen. Okay, so, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually turn on the click track so you guys can hear when these notes are changing. Now, this doesn't sound like a full chord, but they're single notes. You can still do it right down to the single note. So have a listen. I turn on the click track, and we're going to hear how many bars that it actually plays through before it switches to a new note or a new chord. So let's have a listen. Okay, so if we were to actually zoom in, and I want to show you guys this because this is just within the first 8 bars. I can actually break this right down with markers, and I'll just start adding these markers as we go. So let's have a listen. So the main chord, if I remember playing this back, I'm playing it back, and I hold it for 4 bars. I pitch it down, then I go to the next note. So here is where my first change in note or key tone happens. So here's my first change. So you're seeing bar marker 36, okay? So this is where it's going to... Okay, so then I broke it down to... I'm going to add another locator. So let's have a listen. So from the beginning, I held it for 4 bars. Okay, it's going to come to the bar marker 36. There's the next note. I held this one for 2 bars. And then I broke the last tail end into 1 bars. So here's a fundamental, this is a fundamental rule when it comes to working with progression, so you guys understand this, is that when we learn to start writing chords, and if you have a base foundational knowledge on theory, on how to combine and how to move, we look at our bar count and our structure on how the song is going to move. If I strictly held, for example, in this first pass, I held it for 4 bars. And if I held it for another 4 bars, just a single note, and I didn't change any other notes, well, it makes the song seem like it's going to carry a little bit longer. So the general rule is the longer of a bar count there is in between progressions, the longer it feels that it's taking the song to progress through its timeline. So if you hear on the second half from 36, so starting from marker 36, which these are 2, this is the first 4 bars. So if I highlight this, That's the first 4. Okay. This is also the next 4. But if we play it one more time, okay. So as it's going through, you're hearing the single note. It's going to bend into 36. Now the note has changed. Now we're going to have a change here and another change here. Back to the beginning. Okay, so let's see how that actually carries in to the next segment. So here you can see I broke it down into 4. And then I broke this down into 2. And then I went 1. So it goes 4, held it for 2, held this one for 1, held it for 1. So this gives me a combination of 4, 2, 1, 1, which is a total of 8 bars. So 4 with 2 gives me 6, 1 and 1 gives me 8. Okay, so there's my first 8 bars. Let's hear the second. Let's actually play from marker 36 and let's see how it carries in. Okay. So if we look from 17 now, in this one, I've carried the progression. Now I'm holding it for 2 bars. So you can see how the song is actually progressing. So as I'm moving into this segment, let's have a listen. Okay, and there was another change here. You can actually hear it on the tone. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a full chord. Like I said, I'm just using, in this case, this is more of like, could be, like I said, we're using pads. Even if it's a single note, there is a sense of tonality change that allows the ear to notice that shift. Okay, so let's have a listen again. So we're going to hear it. Bar 19, bar 20, back to 21. High pitch. Okay. Okay, so over here you can see this is like the reverse of this. So in the first 8, first I started with 4, I dropped it down to 2, 1, 1. The second 8 bars, which now this is going to give me a stretch of 16, it's literally a mirror image. So I went 2 bars, 1, 1, and then it looks like this. Okay, and then I carried it for 4, and then the song is going to move into this. Let's have a listen. We have a drone note just carrying there. Okay, I'm gonna move forward so we can hear the whole song moving in. So here I'm just really holding the note, creating tension, sustaining the tone. So you're seeing how that lower tone pad just kind of, I held it for almost really 16 bars. Once that high pitch pad bend disappears, this is pretty much just playing all the way through. For, if we take a look, right, 8 bars here, 8 bars there, which gives us 16. So there's a lot of tension here. Now this is how you can work with your timeline, is understanding your bar and beat count. Every song that you reverse engineer or start to strip apart, you'll start to understand this concept and start to really pay attention to how the song moves through time and through its progression. This is what's going to determine the feeling of the song. Even if your tempo stays at 120 or 125, whatever tempo of choice you use, you can still make the song feel like it's progressing faster or slower based on how we look at our bar progressions. And this is really the third point we have to focus on. So let's just have a listen. Okay. I'm just going to turn off the click track. Okay. So this is the basic. All right. So there's our bass line. So now we have a bass tone. So let's just see what the bass is moving at. So the bass is moving every 2. So from 73 to 75. Let me zoom this in so you can see this. So let's just play from the beginning. You hear the bass. It's gonna shift on 75, 70. So just in between. It was kind of an offbeat here. So there's a little bit of an off. So this is part of actually working with progression. You can get creative in the sense where you don't have to be so rigid, meaning you follow the straight 2 bars, straight 4-bar formula. To add variation and flavor to your music as you progress, you can have different shifting points, as an example right here. So I held the first one for 2 bars, shift, and we were expecting 76, but it's actually halfway through. Back down, another 2 bars, boom. Okay, and I did the same thing there. So you're seeing variation in the progression, which is allowable, and there's really no rule set in stone saying you can't do this, right? So this is the actual third point we need to understand about reverse engineering a song is, and as I do this, you want to remember this and also take notes and make note of the most important progressions of the song. When you start writing your own and you have a song that you've already reverse engineered and have a skeleton for it, and you understand where the most important shifts are, such as your choruses, your verses, the main elements of the actual track, this is going to be an edge for you to really start understanding how to write and how to write better music. It'll start to sound more professional. It'll start to sound more structured, more organized. This is really the third step that I think is very important in the reverse engineering stage. So that is understanding the progressions involved in the song. And like I said, this can be through your drums, as your drums progress, as hi-hats come in, more elements, percussives start coming in on the track, and also how your chords are moving, right? But these are just some of the basic elements. Eventually, depending on the song, you'll hear so many layers sometimes that there's a lot of elements working as one, and the whole song is pretty much the overall harmony. But this is the third stage we need to understand, which is understanding the progression and how to make use of our timeline. Okay, that's our third video for reverse engineering, and let's go into our last video and our fourth video on the final stage of reverse engineering.